It used to be in 2015 that people would move to Boise because of the cost of living. Word got out in 2020, big event happened. I think we know what happened. And cost of living wasn't the main factor for people living here, but it still is a huge contributing factor. One knock on Boise is they will say the wages are not keeping up with the home prices. In other words, there's not a huge cost to live here. What happens is if the cost of living goes up, that's most likely only contribute to people's salaries, and people's salaries will catch up with the housing economy. So right now we're gonna dive into the cost of living in the Boise, Idaho area. The cost of living is not gonna differ much from Boise to Meridian to Caldwell. The only thing that really differs from one end of the valley to the next is going to be the home prices. So cost of living 2025, let's dive in. I'm not just gonna give you a bunch of smoke hypotheticals that tells you what it might be like if you bought a house. I'm actually gonna give you my real numbers, and I want to also throw up my real numbers from a few years ago when I lived in Eagle, because that was a $750,000 home on 0.2 acres, 2-story with 1 furnace. And so this is a house with 2 furnaces, 3,200 square feet, and it's on an acre. So the difference in prices might vary a little bit. We use a lot more electricity out here because we have 2 HVAC units. And so that comes into play. Our steady even pay for the year is at 220-ish, it's like 221. And so for 220 times 24, that's your math on what it costs for the Idaho power. If you break that down, that's gonna be like as low as 140 in the winter months because we use gas to heat. And it's going to be a lot more like 300 bucks in the summer months because we use the electricity to cool. That's your fluctuation, 220 even pay on Idaho power. The trash bill from Eagle to Middleton didn't seem to change much. It seems like it's about 20 bucks a month. You can pay an extra couple dollars for a couple trash cans and things like that to add on to it, but that number really doesn't differ much. The sewer fee when we lived in Eagle was about 40 bucks a month. I think it says 45 here, but when we're out here in Middleton, we have a septic tank. So it costs a few $100 every few years to empty that and test for the bacteria in there. When it comes to watering your lawn in the Boise area, that is the HOA that takes care of the water rights. And so you can actually take care of your watering the lawn through pressurized irrigation. That is the beautiful thing about Boise. I'd say about 98% of the neighborhoods have water rights. What happens is the water is stored at Lucky Peak. The water goes through Boise River, and then some of it's diverted through the canal system. That canal system becomes your pressurized irrigation. If you live on an acre like me, then you are allotted about half an acre's worth of grass to water with that well. So you either have a well you have to dig for one time, or you're going to have a water bill due each month. 45 bucks a month is I think what we were paying in Eagle. That gives you an idea of those costs there. I know for some of you coming from out of state, particularly California, there are parts of the state where the water is super expensive. There's parts of the state where the electricity is super expensive. I know my in-laws moved from Northern California, and for them it was 800 bucks a month for electricity. And that's why a lot of you guys have gas dryers and things like that. Here in Idaho, we don't have gas dryers, FYI, we have electric. I've never seen a gas dryer. When it comes to internet, expect to pay about 80 to 120 bucks. 80 bucks for Sparklight. I think you can pay a little bit less. There's some deals where they have fiber and internet where they've already pre-plumbed it and pre-put it throughout to the subdivision. I'm looking at some options in Sparklight right now. You've got anywhere as low as 35 bucks a month all the way up to 120 bucks for something like Starlink. Starlink, what I've seen out here in Middleton when you have people with acreage properties, is it's actually the most reliable. We had something we had on our roof for a while. We were one of 11 homes that had it. We actually opted out. Now we just use home Verizon internet, which is I think only 35 bucks a month or something. We actually have a cheap internet when it comes to that. I know there's other options and other carriers that do that as well. When it comes to water, sewer, trash, and power, those are your bills. Nothing like receiving a fun insurance bill that doubles overnight. That was our home insurance bill. We went from $1,600 a year to $32, not an exact double, but just for story's sake, was easier to say. We got that down to $2,800 a year. However, the car insurance, we're paying $743 per 6 months. That's for 2 adult drivers and 1 teenager. We used to be a lot lower, like 320 bucks per 6 months. I kid you not, everyone would call and try to quote. We would just tell them our price and they would walk away until we added the teen driver, and that has skyrocketed our costs. So don't get a teen driver is the moral of the story. Otherwise, you'll be paying higher costs. I do think our costs are a lot lower than a lot of states, but it did stink to go from 300 to 700 overnight. You want to know the most expensive part of Boise Valley to live in? It actually is downtown Boise. However, if you take the cities as a whole and compare them, you're going to take some of downtown Boise and combine it with central Boise and compare it with southwest Boise, all that type of stuff, right? it averages out, and to make Eagle the most expensive city to live in, it's not the most expensive zip code. That would belong to North Boise. So Eagle, as you can see, is highest on this list. Garden City, surprisingly, is high on this as you look at the numbers. Why? Because there's actually $1 million homes in Garden City. There's a lot of trailers. There's a lot of businesses along that main Chinden drag that goes through Garden City. That is one of the more expensive ones. Boise, obviously more expensive. Meridian, it says Star is more expensive than Meridian. That's because it's proximity to Eagle. Middleton, barely under Meridian on this. It's because of the acreage properties in Middleton. And then you have Caldwell at the lower end, Nampa, Kuna at the lower end. That's interesting because Middleton used to be at the lower end compared with Kuna. So that is very interesting data that I'm looking at now for the first time. Just know that this is a data set for the last year, April 24th, 24 to 25. That is 365 days of data for these median home prices in these cities. I live in Middleton. Lived in Eagle before for 8 years, 7 or 8 years, and born and raised in the Boise area. So I've actually lived in Boise address. It was Meridian High I went to. When we were married, we lived in Boise address again, but it was Meridian School District again. It was right on the west side of Eagle Road that time. Then down to Eagle. And then I'd say most of the times I'm dealing with home purchases in Star, Middleton, Eagle, North Meridian. I have 2 closing in South Meridian right now. That's kind of my vibe, my jam. A lot of acreage properties, a lot of neighborhood 8 properties. Some of those videos I made, in fact, I just made a video about the top 9 neighborhoods in South Meridian. That one is a good one. So if you maybe can link that one as we're talking about it right now, link that, go watch that one if you're interested in those cities as well. The prices do vary. You can see that Eagle is superior to all others. The 874, that number fluctuates between 875, 950 regularly. Each month to month is like that, so it goes up and down. Middleton, I've seen it go as low as 500, as low and as high as about 550, kind of fluctuates in that range. And all other in Stars, that's pretty normal for Star as well. So those are the average home prices in the city. Now I work with all budgets from anywhere from homes, people buying $300,000 homes to people buying $3 million homes. I've toured them all. I've toured the nicest homes in the city. I've toured some of the not so nice homes in the city. And I want to let you know, I am happy to work with you. In fact, I don't care what your budget is. There's no greater compliment I receive than phone calls, texts, emails from you saying you're moving to Boise and you need help and you want to get started. I've got the Buying in Boise Blueprint, which helps you buy a home with no regrets, without overpaying or not buy a lemon. So if you're looking to move to Boise, let's get in touch. At no greater compliment that I can get than that phone call, text, or email from you. So let's get started. So now on to everyone's favorite subject. Y'all know what's scarier than death or swimming with sharks or speaking in front of a lot of people? Taxes. Scares a lot of people. Property taxes on this one. If you're coming from Texas, you're gonna think we have the best thing since sliced bread. In fact, a lot of places you're coming from, you're gonna think we have the best thing since sliced bread because our property taxes are super duper low. So let's talk about those. I don't wanna get caught up too much on the numbers of things. I'd say you're anywhere paying from $2,000 to $6,000 of property taxes if I were gonna sum it up. If you're under $1 million, because everyone's gonna be like, what percentage are you at? Well, there's a lot of different levies we have. 0.67, 0.67, 0.724. Estimated annual tax for Boise, 2,500, Meridian 2,500, Eagle 2,500, Star the same, Middleton the spec more, 2,700. Let me just say this. You have a cool thing in Idaho where you have this homeowner's property exemption. If it's your primary residence, you don't have to pay taxes on the first $125,000 of assessed value. You have an assessor that comes by and gives you your value. So it's not based on what you paid for the home because that in Idaho is private information. You don't need to share that with the government when they ask for it. And we're a non-disclosure state, which makes Zillow's estimations of your property in Idaho pretty crazy to say the least. So if you have $1 million home, and you have a $125,000 of property exemption because it's your primary residence, but the assessor, let's say he says your house is worth $925,000, and they usually guess low. In fact, they always guess low because it saves them time debating that in the legal system. So it just makes it easy for them to go low. So you know, 925 minus 125,000. So you're only be taxed based off of $800,000. Also, what makes Idaho very unique is that we're a budget-based state, not a levy-based state. So the levy is based off the budget. So if they make a budget for $1 billion, you're going to have to pay taxes on your portion of how much real estate you own. So yours is going to be 800,000 divided by the total number of property owned out there, and that's going to be how much percentage you owe towards that budget. The levy is based to make that price work in the budget. Does that make sense? So if you own a $400,000 home, they assess you at $350,000, you're only gonna be paying taxes off of $225,000. So now you're basically paying half the value of your home. If you're in $1 million range, it's gonna be something around the 80% value. And if you own a $3 million home, it's gonna be almost like the 95% range. So really that $125,000 that's taken off is really to help lower income. It's really not that big of a bonus for you because we're a budget-based state, not levy-based. Long story short, there's a lot of things that play in there, but the assessor is required to go to your house every so many years, every 5 to be exact. But just don't get caught up in that. Just know that our property taxes are low. Anywhere from probably $2,500 to $4,500 is probably the majority of people I talk to. If you live on a $3 million property, you're gonna be paying somewhere in $6,000 to $10,000 a year. I mean, I know my brother-in-law lives in Frisco, Texas. He pays somewhere around $15,000 a year. It really is a blessing that we have such low property taxes. Middleton is the higher of the amount because we don't have a lot of commercial taxes paying into that same budget. So the homeowners are expected to make that up. There's a few things that go into all of that. I had somebody I talked to a couple years ago when we were moving to Middleton. They said, how do you afford those property taxes? I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said, well, we looked at moving to Lakes at Talega, and they lived in Legacy, and they were talking about how the property taxes alone offset the mortgage. And it's not, I don't know what they were looking at. That's not how bad it is. If you don't have that homeowner's property exemption, you might be paying another few $100 a year, but it's really not a big deal. It's not like you're paying exorbitant amounts of money. I mean, that estimation we have is, a couple $100 per year per house for, type of equal home. And that's more realistic from what I've seen. Still keep going on that scary topic of taxes. Let's talk income taxes. What we've done, taking the median household income of these cities, taking Eagle, Meridian, Star, Middleton, and Boise, and we're going married file jointly for all you nerds out there who are following this. You're taking your median income salary, if for the household in Eagle, your taxable income decreases, you're gonna be paying state income taxes around $4,600. Meridian around $3,600, Star around $3,200, Middleton $2,800. And this is based off the median household income for each city. So if you have that, that's roughly what you'd be paying if you are the median in those cities. However, you can take the 120 and back it down to 81. You can kind of see the difference of taxes based on those incomes, which is probably more realistic for you. You kind of find out where you're at and estimate where your taxes are going to be. That was taking standard deductions, by the way. Acting as if I'm an accountant. You guys know I'm no accountant. I'm a real estate agent. So don't take this to your accountant and say, well, hey, that one guy on YouTube said, that ain't gonna get you anywhere. Estimated state income tax is 5.3%. So take that with what you might, but these are definitely estimates. Before I continue, I want to emphasize I am no tax accountant. So take this to your tax accountant. Retiring in Idaho. What we have found is that private pensions are fully taxed. Public pensions might qualify for some limited deductions. Medicare is not taxed by the state. That I for sure know. For eligible seniors, you can get additional discounts off your property taxes. But remember, if you qualify. So those things all can play a part. But I do know that Idaho is an attractive place to retire to. I had a client who moved to Eagle, and they bought an Alturas home in Homestead, and he was talking about how moving from Texas is saving him dozens of thousands of dollars every year because of the cost of living compared to Texas. He made $180 a year, and it was somewhere around $18,000 a year. I mean, just off the property taxes alone, he's probably saving $10,000 right there, plus $8,000 in day-to-day. Idaho is a cheaper state to live in. Complaint that people have is that the incomes aren't keeping up with the housing prices, and that's true. I correlate that with the wages not going up. If wages go up, we're gonna see prices go up to support those wages, and the cost of living is going to catch up. I think normally you're going to see an imbalance, but in a thriving economy, that's gonna be housing prices ahead of the incomes. And then in a crashing economy, you're gonna see those numbers get closer together. Again, not a professional economist here, but those are my 2 cents. Understanding retirees just a little bit more. The individual retiree on average is making a couple $1,000s a month. And if you're a retired couple, it's around $3,000 a month. The people's numbers I've actually seen are higher than that. For people who have paid into it for a long time, obviously the more you pay into it, the more you get back. And we all know the more you take from this, the lesser chance it is that I get this. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. We did crunch numbers for you guys on estimated monthly expenses for a retiree in Idaho. And you can see that on your screen with monthly estimated costs of some property taxes, home insurance, health insurance, car insurance. Health insurance seems a little high, but I'm not sure. Anyway, that's about $22.50 a month. That's living on a budget, eating out and dining out for only $200 a month. Groceries is $600 a month. I'm not sure if that would go, quite honestly. Eating out, that's only a few times a month. Our society now is changing to be different than that, but could you do it on a few $1,000s a month? with no house payment? Yes, you could. However, there are home equity conversion mortgages you can do, and that can help you take money out of your asset that you have, your biggest asset that you've saved your whole life for, that's your house, and it can help you in your elder years if you need that. When you go to buy a house, we can actually qualify you for more money with no income, and it can change it from living in a trailer to actually having a single family home. I've seen this mortgage change retirees' lives. A lot of retirees that I talk to also have the cash to buy the place here and don't need this type of mortgage, but there are options to help you get to where you need to go in your retirement age. You want to use AI to have some fun now? So we're going to use ChatGPT to break down $100,000 income a year, to break down normal living expenses, taxes, insurance, and what we would expect that monthly payment to be for that house. Of course, they say if you make $100,000 a year, they could say you could use the rule they say is, hey, 33% of your income should be for your mortgage. Let's see what it equals out to be. So it means your gross monthly income would be about $8,300. You'd want to save $1,667, and then your net savings after that is $6,666. The chart that you see on your screen is how this all breaks down. It's going to break down with federal and state taxes at $12,000 total per year, your health insurance, car payments, electricity, gas, your utilities, the eating out, the miscellaneous, the groceries. It says you need about $5,500 per month. I would actually say that's very, very, very accurate. When we had a budget, we lived on a tight budget when we were in Eagle, and we were saving a certain amount. We lived off $5,500 a month, and that was giving us a little bit of play money. But for the most part, it just wasn't going crazy. We would, try to eat out seldom, and we'd still eat out a little bit. Wouldn't skimp, but wouldn't exactly have a ton of those experiences. And $5,500 a month is about what you could do it off of. That's just married with 2 kids on $100,000. So that gives you a savings of $1,200 per month. And heaven knows we need to have savings for a rainy day. So feel free to analyze that chart. I really think it is pretty accurate for a normal, let's say $750,000 home, neighborhood, paying HOA dues, getting your irrigation water pressurized, all that type of stuff. I think that's pretty accurate. If you wanted to say, hey, that's too tight, let's save $500 a month. We use $700 a month extra to go out to eat, to buy a little league, go to Roaring Springs, a few other things of entertainment more. That is definitely possible. And so you can still put away $500 a month if that's your budget. And of course, I am not a financial advisor, nor am I some sort of accountant or anything else. I just know that saving for a rainy day is the good thing to do. And if you're looking for a free location guide, you can put that in the comments of these videos. Tell me you're looking for the location guide, and I will get in touch with you. Like, if you have your email there, I can send it. And if you have comments on this video, you have more questions about your cost of living, please put them in the comments. I can respond there. A lot of times I have covered this at a 35,000 foot view, and you have more specific things that are applicable to many, I can get you answers for those things. Or if it's just specific to you, I can reach out with an email back to you. And if you're looking to move to the Treasure Valley, every neighborhood you need to know is right there. Go watch that video right now. I'm gonna give my best suggestions for you to where to move. I obviously am biased. I like the acreage properties. I also like where I came from, legacy. So I'm gonna have HOA options in there, non-HOA options in there, and it's gonna be for you to choose. And of course, whatever I missed, put that down below in the comments.